Cornish walking trails. Offshore is a little island called Looe Island, quite close to Looe. Today we're going to tell you the story how the people of Looe ate rats. Hello everybody.
Hello.
We've been filming in Looe today, but there is a wonderful story that we came across and we wanted to share it with you in a short little video. In front of us is Looe Island, and we're going to tell you how the people of Looe were said to have ate rats.
Rats?
Rats!
No.
Yeah.
What's wrong with them?
So what does a rat taste like?
Sarah, would you describe this story as having a long tail?
A long skinny pink. Oh. Our account of this story is taken from a Victorian book. It was written by Wilkie Collins. He was visiting Cornwall in the 1850s. We'll get the exact date for you. And he kept a diary of his adventures throughout Cornwall. The book is called Rambles Beyond Railways because at the time there were no railways in Cornwall. He wanted to use his legs to get around. The first place he visited was Looe. Oh, hello.
Hello. Yeah, so he visited in 1850.
There you go, that's the date I was looking for.
Oh, okay. And he chose Looe as his starting point for his whole travels around Cornwall. And by the sounds of it, he had a lovely time in Looe, didn't he?
Yeah, he's got a wonderful description of Looe, how it's nestled into that valley, and we'll get the book out and we'll read that to you now. So he tells us he is bemused by the higgledy-piggledy nature of Looe's buildings. He says there's no such thing as a straight street in the place. No martinet of an architect has been here to drill the old stone buildings into regimental regularity. Sometimes you go down steps into the ground floor. Sometimes you mount an outside staircase to get to the bedrooms. Never were such places devised for hide and seek since that exciting nursery pastime was first invented.
Who?
No house has fewer than 2 doors leading into 2 different lanes. Some have 3, opening at once into a court, a street and a wharf, all situated at different points of the compass.
You see how small the window is there?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's incredibly tiny, isn't it? Look at that.
8 inches square.
Wow.
About a mile out to sea, to the southward of the town, rises a green, triangular-shaped eminence called Looe Island. Here, many years ago, a ship was wrecked. Not only were the sailors saved, but several free passengers of the rat species who got on board, nobody knew how, where or when, were also preserved by their own strenuous exertions and wisely took up permanent quarters for the future on the terra firma of Looe Island. So this is a fun little story, and in here he says that there was a problem with rats on Looe Island. It's believed that when there was a shipwreck over there, these little stowaways, shall we say, crawled off the shipwreck and started to populate the island. And the evidence of this became really annoying because they would eat the crops that were planted. They devastated everything over there, and their population just grew and grew and grew. They tried to kill them with bait, they tried to kill them with dogs, ferrets, shoot them, but they always came back, their numbers always built back up again. What was to do? This was the problem, and it was solved in the following manner. All the available inhabitants of the town were called to join a great hunt. The rats were caught by every conceivable artifice, and once taken, were instantly and ferociously smothered in onions. The corpses were then decently laid out on clean china plates and straightway eaten with vindictive relish by the people of Looe. Never was any invention for destroying rats so complete and so successful as this. And this is the true story of how the people of Looe got rid of the rats. Yum. I think these rats came off a shipwreck.
Yeah.
And they populated the island over there to the extent they became a nuisance.
Well, I can see that happening, because if they did manage to get off the ship, there's nowhere else for them to go, is it?
No.
So they're just going to multiply, aren't they?
So
and there's nothing there to actually keep them in check, is there?
No, there's no natural predator, is there? Other than man.
Yeah.
The account is quite funny in places, because it says that they would shoot these things, the rats would convalesce, come back to life, and repopulate the island. So whatever they tried to do failed, and that's why they were driven to this point of, right, everyone we catch, we're going to cook it and eat it.
What sort of era are we talking about here, though? Because he obviously wrote this in 1850, and this is a story he was told when he arrived in Looe, isn't it?
Yeah, but there isn't a date given,
no.
But you'd assume it was in living memory.
Well, I do know that in the 1840s there was a famine, wasn't there? They called it the Hungry 40s.
Yeah, let's just get down here a minute.
So I suppose if people were absolutely desperate for food, because if the harvest had failed, if you'd had a poor winter, your crops just didn't come through,
Yeah.
you're starving, hungry, you're going to eat anything, aren't you? And we do know there's accounts of, they call it just eating meat, don't they?
It's in that book, isn't it?
Whatever was available, they would call it meat and eat it.
And that was sometimes seal.
Seal, yes.
Yeah, so it isn't kind of out of the question that if you were hungry, you'd be driven to eating rats.
I always think it's strange, especially when you come to a place like Looe, where it's a fishing port, so they obviously have a ready supply of fish, but then I suppose if it had been a winter and they couldn't get the boats out,
Yeah.
they must have been starving.
Wow.
So I know what everybody is shouting at the screen.
So what does a rat taste like?
So, Sarah, have you ever had rat?
No!
No! Nor have I.
And unless you've had it somewhere else, I've never dished it up to you.
No, but I wonder what it does taste like.
And how do you cook it? Is there much meat on a rat? Is it gamey? Is it like chicken? Is the onion providing the flavour? How would you season it?
And I suppose if you didn't know what you were eating, if it was presented to you, like you served up in a restaurant.
On a china plate?
Yeah, and it all looks really pretty and it's all nicely cooked, would you actually know what you're eating?
Would you care?
I'm not suggesting they do that now in Looe, but...
So it is completely conceivable that rats could have come off a shipwreck.
Yes.
Tick box.
Yeah.
It's also conceivable that they could have populated that island without any predator preying on them.
Yeah, and I think they could very quickly sort of just take over, couldn't they?
Yeah, a couple of years,
yeah.
and they'd be eating each other,
Yeah,
wouldn't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
there's buildings out there today.
Yes.
So what I don't know is if people lived on that island at that time.
No.
But it would suggest that they did, because it said it was eating the crops.
Yes. So we know that there's been a time team investigation out there and they found evidence of a chapel.
Yes.
Didn't they? We
Yeah.
also know there's stories of Jesus landing over there as a boy with, was it Joseph of Arimathea?
Well, there is a legend of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because they used to trade in Cornwall, and apparently before they could get into the harbour, if they arrived on the boats and it was a low tide and they couldn't get in, they took shelter at Looe Island, because
Yeah.
obviously the waters were deeper there, and they would wait until they could go in and offload or load up their ships. But there's obviously been a trade in tin
Yes.
for many, many years, and we know that the Phoenicians came to Cornwall. St Michael's Mount was a
has
port,
an
wasn't it?
association with St Michael's Mount,
Yes.
doesn't it? So it's had a number of names as well. And we were debating a moment ago, we can't quite remember, and we haven't got the book with us, but we'll put it in. I thought it was St Nicholas, you
Yeah.
thought it was St George, and we kind of said, well, it could have been St Michael. We can't remember. We'll put it along the bottom of the
Quite a
screen.
funny thing,
there.
it's been known as all of them over the time, but
Yeah.
today people just call it Looe Island.
So there's also a kind of story that goes around that there was a smuggler living over there, wasn't
Yes,
there?
yeah.
And he was pretty ferocious.
And it's a perfect place for a smuggler, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you can pretty much do what you want over there.
Yeah, and latterly it was owned by two sisters that bought it in the 1950s.
Yeah, I think they were called the Atkins sisters.
And if you went over there as a visitor,
Yes, they
they
would
used
offer
to
you-
dish up a cream tea.
Yeah, and a cup of tea.
Yeah, cup of tea.
Yes, but they wrote a book, and it's called We Bought an Island. I've got
Which
a copy
we've
of
got
that
at
book at
home,
home,
haven't we?
which
Yeah.
I should have brought with me today because it might have been useful.
And today it's now a nature reserve.
Yeah, and I think in the summer you can even go out there and have a little wander. You can get a boat from
Yeah.
Looe, and I think occasionally at a very, very, very low tide you can walk over.
Yeah,
But
you've
can't
got
do
to
that
time
today.
that one right, haven't you? And I'm not
Yeah.
getting wet today. So, to sum up, they ate rats in Looe from Looe Island.
There we are, it's a thing. It must be true, we read it in a book.
And this is the true story of how the people of Looe got rid of the rats.
So what's the strangest thing you've ever ate?
I don't know. Snail.
I was going to say, I've had snails.
Yeah, snails in France.
Quite rubbery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. No. I've never ate rats.
I'm intrigued to know what they would taste like.
Yeah. What's the texture like? Are they chewy?
I mean, I'm sure there'll be somebody watching that probably knows.
Yeah. What's the strangest thing you've ever ate? Put it in the comments. Let us know.
Really?
All right.
You open up a can of worms.
Worms.
Not that I've ate a can of worms, but I'm sure you've opened one up. You know, Rick Stein's been making his programme about Cornwall.
Yeah.
It's actually very, very, very good, which we thoroughly enjoyed.
Yes.
Perhaps this might be a feature for him for the next next episode he does.
He's looking for strange stories.
Cornish rats. Very tasty.
Yum. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. It's free on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook for our latest news. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell so that when we upload a video, YouTube will notify you. Thanks for watching.